Hi, folks. November 2nd. So this is the first lecture for the week of November 2nd to 6th. We finished up last time Module 4 on sustainable production, environmental impacts of agriculture production. Now we're moving on to sustainable consumption. And we'll have 2 lectures just this week in this module. So this one's going to focus on kind of the big picture set of studies about the environmental impacts of diet. And then we'll dig in the next time to a shorter lecture on the Eat, Land, Set global reference diets and the criticisms of it. So I'm going to share my screen and get started. Okay, so the overview. So first, before I do that, I thought I would give you kind of a brief on what's up for the rest of this class. So time is slipping by, and with reading week coming up next week, it's a good time for kind of stock taking. So we have module 5 out of the 6 we'll deal with this week. Next week is the fall reading week. There'll be no lecture next week. The following week after reading week will be starting module 6 on science and technology, which we will continue into the week of November 30th. So that will be separated by a week that focuses on the CSL group presentations and discussion of those presentations. And then I have here, so we have our last day of classes at the University of Alberta is Monday, December 7th. So we don't have any class that day. I'm going to make myself available for review of material on Zoom during the regular class Zoom times on December 8th, 10th, and 15th. And keep in mind that the final exam will be similar format to the previous one on December 17th. So looking at module 5 then on sustainable diets, I have 3 mini lectures for you today. First one is on background and objectives. Second one, we're going to kind of dig into the basis of comparison and the challenges comparing environmental impacts of food and diet, more challenges than one would expect. Then look at some actual diets and their environmental effects. And see if we can reach any overall conclusions or whether things are more complex than that in terms of the relationship between healthy and sustainable diets. And then the next second lecture later this week will be on the Eat, Land, Set global reference diet. So I wanted to kind of start off with a little story that is pretty close to home here at the University of Alberta that unfolded last year. And this is a story about the difference between research and the conclusions that we can draw from research, and going to have some dots, the way that research may be represented and used for different purposes. So this is a story, and there's a reference for the source paper here by Masood and colleagues, including Farah Malzi. Professor Farah Malzi is professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Alberta. She does a lot of work on water and hydrologic cycles, including large amounts of modeling work. And she and her grad students in this publication published in 2018 used a hydrologic or water cycle model to predict the effects of climate change on crop growing conditions in province of Alberta. They focused on barley, and barley, as we know, is mostly used as a livestock feed. It's also used as the brewing material for beer. But most barley produced in Alberta is used for livestock feed, or either here or is exported. The models that we have to predict future climates and future weather conditions indicate that there's likely to be more rainfall in northern Alberta and less rainfall in southern Alberta over time. So using a crop model, Faramarzi and colleagues predicted that barley production would increase in northern Alberta, where there was more rainfall and also warmer temperatures than currently, and might decrease barley production in southern Alberta. So this is a fairly standard result. It's consistent with results from other climate modeling work in Canada. Professor David Sachin at the University of Regina and his colleagues have also looked at this, looking at the yields of dryland crops. So outside of the irrigated area, which is mostly focused in southern Alberta, outside of that irrigated area, they're looking at the relationship between crop production and climate and find that there's a link between level of rainfall and yield, so a positive relationship between level of rainfall and yield. They then use regional climate models to predict that long term, due to climate change, there's going to be rises in average summer and winter temperatures in the prairies. At the same time, there's going to be rises in rainfall variation and temperature. So there might be, there's going to be increased stress on farming systems. So we're going to have warmer temperatures, which may contribute to crop production. We may have some years of higher rainfall, but also years of lower rainfall, years of higher temperatures and years of lower temperatures. So yes, it's true that there might be some loss of production in southern Alberta, according to this modeling work, due to rises in temperatures and especially rainfall variation. And there might be some increase in places where you have higher rainfall, but there's going to be certainly more variation. Overall, this story is a story of increased uncertainty for farmers, but possible highs and lows. And if you average those highs and lows over time, you might find some overall increases in production in the north and decreases in production in the rainfall parts of the south. So very similar to the previous studies. What was unique in this study, this case, was that the Faramarzi result was taken by university communications and development officials and come up with this ad campaign. You see here this big billboard in the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, beefier barley. Climate change will boost Alberta's barley yield with less water, feeding more cattle. So what they did was sort of cherry-picked some results, right? They picked out of the results that they could find. They could have found that there would be less barley production in rainfall areas of southern Alberta. They focus on northern Alberta, and they focus on this long-term change rather than the increase in variability. And they focused on what is sort of perceiving this as a positive story about climate change and how implying we should be very happy that there's climate change because it's going to allow us to feed more cattle with the barley, extra barley we produce in northern Alberta. What was odd about this, not only was it cherry-picked result, it was presented and offered to the public at the very same time that the climate protests were in full swing here in Edmonton, just 2 weeks before the visit by Greta Thunberg last year. So it was really seen as a kind of a thumb in the eye of those who are concerned about the climate and kind of pandering to those sort of climate deniers or those who might be denying the need for action. The result of this was quite a bit of an uproar. And finally, the senior most university official who was responsible for the ad campaign resigned over the ad. So what we see from that is, what I want to use as an example is how the importance of kind of understanding what research gives us and what it doesn't. If we're looking at the whole picture from research and thinking about how sort of different results we see where people say they're reliant upon a scientific study Have they actually used that study appropriately? Is the comparison actually a fair comparison, or is it actually constructed to just support a point of view? So I want you to be critical, especially on this area of environmental impact of food, thinking about how even scientists may want to sensationalize the conclusions from their results. That might get amplified when people who want to sell research or sell a particular point of view kind of take the science and interpret it as they do. The fact that you need to be critical, you need to think about the basis of comparison, which may give different results, how results may be picked and chosen to get results that make either a dramatic story or a story that they like for personal reasons. And then finally, we're actually going to draw some conclusions about the fact that there really are, just at that number 1 point, there are no easy rules of thumb with our diets, that sustainable diets happen to be healthy diets, or that healthy diets tend to be sustainable, that we actually can't reach that conclusion. We need to get in more to the context and special particularities of situations. Okay, so I'm going to, that's the first mini lecture, and then I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.